great words in that hymn we just sang, one of our new ones. Look at the words, fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. But stanza 2, made of marble, brick, or timber, and the labor of our hands, may our buildings house a people who embody God's commands. And I think we do try to endeavor to do that at St. John's. This morning, we're actually going to pay attention to the first part of that verse, which is this building, which sometimes I think we tend maybe to take for granted. I don't think we do that exclusively, but sometimes just, it's just here always for us, and actually it is not. And we're pleased to have this morning, you're going to get a great presentation. Notice that we've amended the service a bit to make time for this. So I hope you'll really relax, ease into this presentation. Sid Hankins, one of our own parishioners, a leading expert in remediation and work on old buildings such as this across the South United States, is a parishioner. He's guided us through this process, and he's going to show you what we're about with a bit of history. So Sid, come on up. You're going to really enjoy this.
Good morning. You may have been as surprised as I was when I picked up the service sheet and it said sermon and it had my name beneath that. So I don't know that I can compete with our clergy, but actually I think the real reason was that John felt like he needed a break and that you all needed a break, and so that's what we're going to go with anyway. What we wanted to do was to bring you up to speed with what we're doing with the cathedral. In case you haven't noticed, there's a lot of construction work going on, and you've had to endure and will have to endure a lot from this point on. But I want to assure you that the work that's going on is comprehensive as possible. We have assembled an incredible team, I think, to analyze and to do all this work. Just as an example, the masonry contractor that's doing all the stone and the brickwork, the foreman came out of semi-retirement. He was trained by his grandfather, who was an immigrant from Scotland, learned the stone masonry trade there, and taught this fellow's father and him. So we have exceptional talent as far as being able to do the work, and I think that's very important. But what we also wanted to do was to make sure that you had the latest information. I've had a lot of people come up and ask, what is going on? Are you really going to tear down the education wing? Are you going to take all the windows out? So this is a chance to acquaint you with what's going on. It's a wonderful opportunity. It's a golden opportunity. This is a grand old building, one that we are blessed to have. And I hope to show you the real resource that we have. Before we get into some of the particulars, and I apologize if this is a little small, but I wanted to sort of lay out the framework here of what we're going to be doing. From a noted author and statesman, this quote, you may have heard it: if you do not know where you come from, then you don't know where you are. And if you don't know where you are, then you don't know where you're going. And if you don't know where you're going, you're probably going wrong. The American philosopher Yogi Berra, I think, said it a little bit better: if you don't know where you are going, you might wind up somewhere else. So what I want to do today is to show you where we have been, where we are, and where we're going. In 1783, I'm going to give you a little bit of the history before we get into the bricks and mortar. In 1783, James White discovered or found the site for Knoxville. He was a Revolutionary soldier, and part of his rewards and pay for service was he was granted 1,000 acres of what is now downtown Knoxville. And his son-in-law, Charles McClung, you may recognize the name, helped him develop the first plat, That's what you see up here. The red circle is where we are right now. So we're in the heart of the original city of Knoxville. McClung's descendants included McClungs and McGee's, who were members of this church, who have long been influential Knoxvillians, and that shows you the link then that we have in history with Knoxville, where it's intertwined. And I want us to appreciate that for our responsibility. This is a photograph. I'm going to show you just a few old photographs here. This is a photograph of the original church that stood on this site. It was a wood frame church. It was constructed in 1845. This is an 1880 photograph. It's not very clear because of all the trees in front, but it was the first building that St. John's had. And then our present building, the old building was raised in 1891. Construction started on this building immediately thereafter. This photograph shows a 1903 photograph about 10 years after this church was completed. Hasn't changed a whole lot, has it? That's a view from the other direction. The fence in the foreground that you see there actually enclosed what became the parish house. It was on this side, on the east side of the building. If you remember, we tore down the parish house then when we built the Great Hall and the Diocesan Center. Some of the parishioners delighted to have been at church that particular morning. But I thought it was interesting to see that that was taken out here on the west side on the steps and the entrance. And then there's a photograph, an early photograph of the interior of the church. This was 1920. There was a catastrophic fire in 1919 that pretty much gutted the sanctuary that we're in right now and some of the adjacent structures. So this was shortly after it was restored, and you can see how ornate and how detailed that we have. And as we do this, I want you to look around now, and I think it's important to understand what we have. Technically, this building is Romanesque, and it's called Richardsonian Romanesque Revival. And it was a trend in church architecture that began to get away from the classic Greek orders, so to speak, which was one style fits all. And so the new philosophy then in church architecture was to make it more ornate, make it fit the purpose for which it was being used. And that's where we are right now. Massive stone walls, strong columns, arched windows and doors, and those are characteristics. But the main thing is that this is a cruciform. That is, that's the shape of the cross. That's the way the church is laid out. This is the nave, a transept on either side. And where the two cross, this is the crossing then, the crossing tower. The chancel from here up, and then the apse, which is the curved part at the back. This is classic church architecture, and so we're following that brand. A brief timeline about how we got to where we are. The original congregation first met in 1826 at the first diocesan convention, the primary convention in 1829. We became a mission, and then we were admitted to the diocese in 1844, had 25 communicants. The first assembly, the first gathering, was at a small building on Gay Street, just 3 blocks from here. After that, then they moved to a home on the corner of Gay and Church, I believe it was. And that was a building that was owned by Humes. And that's a familiar name for us, Humes Hall at the university. Reverend Humes was one of our first rectors, who later became the president of the university. That building was, then the new church was built, as I said, and then this church was built. It was designed by an architect out of Columbus, Ohio, by the name of J.W. Yost, and he was assisted by Bauman Brothers, a local architectural firm, in 1892. We're in good company. This style, as I said, became very popular and became an expression of church architecture. Yost did many, many buildings. This is not St. John's, but it looks like St. John's, or we look like this. It's in St. Louis, Missouri. This is a home in Nova Scotia, a very famous home, and that's the reason that I put it in here. But it shows you the character of that style of architecture. This is maybe the most famous one, Trinity Church in Boston. Many of you may have been there, but it's the same style. So we're in good company. There's St. John's. So if you see the similarity between all of these buildings, that's our history. That's where we come from. That's what we need to preserve. That's what we need to protect. Part of our investigation, when we were asked to do this work, we had to do an assessment of the whole building. And so that's what we began. We used some drone photography, which is what you see here, and that affords us the chance to see maybe some views that you might not ordinarily have seen. This is an aerial view over the courtyard looking back at the east side, and then looking straight down into the courtyard. That shows you the labyrinth and the planting, the columbarium around the perimeter. Then if we look a little more closely, the shape there at the top, the rectangular stones, the alternating stones there, is a crenellation, or that is the crenellation around the top of the building. That's a holdover from medieval days. That's where the archers and the guys with the boiling oil, and they stood up there and they repelled non-believers. So we still have that. It's still around the top. Now, whether we use it or not, I don't know, but anyway. But it shows you that that's our, once again, that's our history. Here's another view of the east transept window. And if you look very carefully, you'll see a lot of small pieces of stone, a lot of things that have to be taken care of. And if you look more closely there, you can see some of those stout columns, some of the louvers, the cornice work, the decoration at the top. Prior to this time, most of our maintenance and our construction projects were not hit and miss necessarily, but they were not part of an overall plan. So at one point in time, not too long ago, we re-roofed the building. So you can see that in progress. And I have a couple of photographs just you thought you might find interesting in some of this. When we re-roofed the crossing tower, we took the old tile off, the old roofing off, and we found that there was a lot of damaged wood that had to be replaced. So that shows you the conditions that we began to encounter there, some of the rotted timbers. And just interesting, if you can tell from this photograph, above the ceiling here in the crossing tower, there's about a 20-foot attic. So that's a view inside the attic of what's up there once we started removing the roof and removing the framing. This is the attic that was above the new music suite. So you can see that it also has some damage that we had to correct when we did the re-roofing part. So moving up to where we are right now, what we have been doing. I want to show you a few photographs. I don't want to be Chicken Little, okay? It's not going to fall down, but it's in bad need of repair. And so this will show you a few of the examples of some of the things that we found. The masonry, the stonework, the brickwork was in extremely bad shape. So we had to find, one, how much of it was there, what was causing it, and what do we need to do to fix it. Just another photograph of some of that damage. The earlier photographs that showed you the whole side of the building looked really good from a distance. But when you start getting closer, when you zoom in a little bit, then you'll see some of the defects that we found. This is one of those louvers at the top of the crossing tower here. So through the years, they've added wire, they've added wood, screen, and a little bit of anything that they could get up there to try to fix the problem. So that's the degree of deterioration that we found. On the inside, everybody's seen the corner over here where the plaster has been removed. So we did an infrared scan to try to determine just how severe the moisture penetration was. So the real dark purple color in this scan represents water. That was moisture that was trapped inside the walls. These walls are solid masonry. They're not studs. They're called mass walls, and because they're just a single mass, and they're anywhere from 12 to 24 inches thick. And so if moisture gets in there, then it takes a long time for it to get out. So we have to really pay attention to how we let that happen. We took off gutters. We found deteriorated boards. This particular framing is above the organ equipment room over here behind the pipes. Okay, there's almost 2,000 pipes in that little room, plus the equipment and the bellows to generate the air. And we found that the roof on that area, well, you can see it was fractured. The framing, all the rafters were broken like this. Now, looking up the edge of the roof, once we started taking some of the stones off, then we found that the brick, you see the brick over here that's exposed on the wall, well, that's 12 or 16 inches thick, and it has stone on the outside. So we found that brick was badly deteriorated in some places. So we had to, and that was the result, one, of age, and two, of all the moisture coming in. But also one of the things that we found was from that fire in 1919, there was still a lot of bricks there that had been fire damaged. These were so soft that we could take them and crumble them in our hands. It really took no effort at all. And so that's an example. This shows you some of the wood boards, the roof boards that were still charred from that fire. So that was a long time ago. And so that has to be, or had to be, replaced also. We found termites, all sorts of water damage, as you might expect in East Tennessee. And then the stone joints on the outside, probably on the major sources of where the water was coming in. There's over 25,000 linear feet of joints, 5 miles. If you put all the joints end to end, it's about 5 miles worth of joints on the outside of this building. And so that's an issue. One, we had to look at them all, and two, then we have to repair the ones that are damaged. Other damaged stones, this is once again the crenellation stones around the top. Some of them are broken that we're going to be repairing. And other stucco damage, other water damage around the outside. So, let me show you quickly then some of the things that we have been doing. We talked about the top of that wall where all the broken brick and stone was located. So we decided that the best result could be achieved by taking those stones off and replacing them. We rebuilt all of the masonry behind the stones and beneath the stones, and then put them back in place. We covered the tops of the walls with waterproofing. We put new stainless steel flashing that you can see here, and then we reinstalled the stones. These stones weigh 300 to 500 pounds each. So it was quite an undertaking to get them off, store them, repair, and get them back in place. So that's all the scaffolding that you've been seeing. Those are the lifts that have been running around here. That's what we've been doing. And this is the finished product, looking down on top of it. The walls are straight. We got new copper flashing that you can see here. Everywhere that it was deteriorated, we put in new gutters and new fascia around the perimeter. And then the roof over the organ equipment, once again, we tore it off completely, reframed it, and installed a new roof system there to make it completely watertight. Then we're addressing the individual little problems. This is one of the new louvers that has been installed around the top of the crossing tower. This is a joint or several joints that have been repointed. In other words, we dig out all the old mortar, we put in the new mortar. And what we did, we found that in order for past repairs to have been made, they used improper materials. So the old mortar was a particular lime-based composition. We had it analyzed. We recreated that same formula so that it would match the performance and the appearance. And this shows you then a joint there that had been repaired. And then finally, we're going to be cleaning the building. In a downtown location, there's a lot of years of soot and dirt up there, but you can also see here that it's growing things on the outside. So we have to take care of that. We're going to clean that, but it's all done then afterwards, after all the repairs have been made. So this is where we're going then. These are the areas that have not quite been finished yet. The crossing tower, all the detail work up of the stone, some of the gutter work and stucco work here on the east side, and then the two vestibule towers that we're going to have to be working on that we have not done yet. We're trying to get done all the water issues within the sanctuary so that we can redo the plaster. And all that is leading up to reopening the sanctuary with our new organ later this year, this fall. So that's kind of where we are. I think Yogi would be pleased that we do have a plan. We do know where we're going, and we do know where we have been. A couple of things I'd like to do here as we close. I found a Bible verse, some scripture from 1 Timothy. It says, "For if someone does not know how to manage his own household, how will he care for God's church?" It's God's church. It's our church. My church, I've been here almost 50 years. And it's my home. And it's your home. And that's what we need to remember, that we need to take care of that so it will continue to serve us. So in closing, I'd like to offer a prayer, if you would join me for just a moment. Dear Lord, thank you for giving us this place to worship. Please help us to remember that we not only have to take care of our own house, but we need to take care of your house as well, both the building itself and the people it serves. Please help us make sure that everyone that walks through our doors feels welcome and feels the warmth and safety of your house. Amen.
Please thank him very much. My Anya, thank you very much. If you have any burning questions, I'm very cognizant of time. Please make a note of them. You can get them to us. We are very findable. Sid is very findable. Frank Gray, who will be our project manager, will be here pretty much every day. Sid's presentation will be online. It'll be on our website. So you can go back and actually look at when he shows you the cracks and shows you the things that they've done. You can see them up close, and you can see them, and you can magnify them and increase your screen size if you need to at home. And we'll explain it. But if you've got some thoughts about that, there will be a way for you to blog questions and comments back to us. Whitney is setting that up. Whitney Ross is setting that in place, so you'll be able to communicate with us. So to wit, one of the things we have to do is the plaster is coming off at least by Wednesday. That exposed brick, we're going to have more of it. And this transept first, back of the church next, that transept next. Because the plaster, we don't know the condition behind the plaster, as Sid said, we need to be out of the building. So for the next 4 weeks, if not the next 5 weeks, we will be worshiping in the space, as Rick Jenkins, our senior warden, keeps reminding all of us. We're not closed. We're just going to move around a little bit. 8 o'clock service will be in the chapel, and we will do 2 services in the Great Hall, 9:30 and 10:30. 10:30 will be much like this. 9:30 a little lighter, more a bit of a family service, but that will provide them plenty of space. We're a smaller crowd today with rain and schedules. Sometimes we're going up to 300, 400 people a Sunday at this service, so we're going to make room for everybody. If we need to add more services, we'll do that too. And of course, you know, it won't be long. We'll head into summertime and Lakeshore and those kind of things. So we'll be out of the building. We'll be back in the building after that. And we'll keep giving you schedules as they come to us. We're not trying to get too far ahead of the work and the repair because it keeps bringing opportunities along the way. So please send them to us. Remember, one thing really important is the new organ didn't do this. This old girl needs a facelift, and she needs some care, and she needs it immediately. In fact, she probably needed it 50 years ago. Literally 50 years ago, we should have done this, but we're doing it now. And thank God Sid is around as an expert, and you've got a team of people. You'll hear their names again. We'll keep saying them, thank them. They have spent, you can't know how many hours Frank Gray, Rusty Russell, Al Bettinger, Jeff Johnson have been up here. I mean, it has been endless. But we're in place now. We're about to launch. We're going to keep moving. You'll see other things happening, really fun things, new bathrooms for the women and men, a new altar guild room. All those things are coming, and they're coming very quickly. So we're going to be doing all that at once. Inconvenienced, but not stopped, as Sid reminded us. Remember, we've been in good hands. 127 years. People do find solace here. You are doing good ministry, and it's going to continue. Sid, thank you. All right, Tracy, let's keep moving.